into it. So we're gonna start off with real or fake. Always real or fake. If you're not familiar, real or fake, I'm gonna make a statement. If you rock with it, it's real. If you don't fuck with it, it's fake. Alright, so real or fake, the question, or excuse me, statement. The zero tolerance policy, which brought on increased suspensions, expulsions, and school arrests, was implemented to cause the school to prison pipeline amongst black students. Real or fake? Real or fake? Anyone want to jump in? I'll start it off, yo. I'm gonna say
moderator. Let's go.
I'm gonna say, because I don't want to be in between, I'm gonna say the statement's real. I feel like at some point, and you know, this is just my ignorant perspective, right? But I don't know what the total, you know, I don't know who the overhead is that makes certain suggestions, right? You know, if it's if it's in the White House or whatever, but at some point they look at the stats and they see the shit and they know what's going on, you know what I mean? So if they're gonna go ahead and make the decision to increase the number when the numbers are already high, you know, and I think there's even a state or a town where I think it was Kentucky, where they actually went ahead and said that if you get arrested or if you get suspended in school, like if there's a fight, you actually get a felony, even at age like 14, 15. I know that sounds wild, but I definitely read this and I can pull this up in a minute.
That's crazy.
But that's ridiculous, yo. You know what I mean? So like when I see shit like that, I don't doubt that this could be something, you know, that pushes people more to the prison pipeline, you know. And like I said, someone sees this and hears this, but that's my opinion. I don't know. Let's start with I'm gonna wake Foo up.
Ooh, what up?
Real or fake? He don't even.
Nah.
Oh, okay.
He said no panicking.
I mean, I'm gonna say real. I always feel like there are concerted efforts to target communities of color and poor communities. Nobody's ever gonna admit to it, right? Nobody's ever gonna admit to like, oh, we're planning on destroying and exploiting your community. Nobody says that openly, but all you gotta do is the proof is in the pudding. When you look at the policies and how they're written, I think, you know what I mean, that's self-explanatory. I mean, if you're not trying to do that and the end result is what's happening is, you know, kids are dropping out, kids are getting locked up, put in DYS, kids are being incarcerated at an earlier age due to these policies, then even if that's not your intention, I mean, you know, what can I say? I mean, it looks like that's your intention. It's like, it's kind of like when people be like, oh, I'm not racist, and then they say something like racist right after, and they're like, oh, but I don't mean that. Yeah. I got black friends. It's like, all right, so you got black friends, that means you can't be racist? Like, it's the same thing, the political game or even the educational game. They kind of pull the same thing. Oh, we're not trying to do this. But then you see the effects of the school to prison pipeline, especially in our current state. The United States have the highest incarcerated population in the world. And
yeah, it's almost blatant.
Yeah,
it's blatant disrespect. I feel like black people be getting trolled, to be honest with you. I'm like, all right.
That's why I be like, when people be like, landed it free, I'm like, what part? What's free? You gotta pay for everything in this country. What part is free? I don't know.
Yo, Kev.
But
what do you think, yo? Real or fake?
Both sides of the fence.
I feel you, but
I'll pick one. If I gotta pick, I'm gonna go with real then, because excuse me, I feel like it starts with expressing ourselves. They're taking our music programs away. They're taking a lot of our physical education programs away. They're limiting us to our 4 core subjects. And we're not giving our young, especially young black men, ways to express themselves in a positive setting, right? So, like, when a kid does get upset, what do? We then we tell them to just stop being upset and do more math. Like, that's not gonna work. We don't have music for them to just sing, or they can't just go to the gym and ball up and cool down real quick. So, I think it's methodical, right? Like, they're taking away our way to express ourselves, and then with nothing left, they know that we won't be able to do what we got to do in those classes. Thus, kids are going to have to get suspended. And then once they get suspended, you implement this law, it's a wrap. Now we got our kids who never learn at any age how to express themselves, and we expect them to be adults. And then we expect them to run families and run businesses. So we're doing it all wrong. We got to get it together. So for that, I'll go with Israel for now.
Okay. I rock with that. That makes sense. Yo, Vu.
Yeah, man. So, even in my own schooling background, I've seen both sides of that coin, but the long and short of it is that there's real. Like the other day, I had a teacher who wanted to see a couple of students that I work with after school, but she didn't want to give them what's called a restorative justice form, right? So like.
Restorative justice form.
So basically what that is like, she doesn't like what you're doing in her class. She gives you this sheet that you need to fill out within 48 hours. Your parents need to see it. If your parents don't see it, then it goes further, right? She was like, I don't even want to get into all that because I know how the prison, the pipeline system works. If I start giving these kids, and granted, it was a pretty diverse group. There was one white kid, one black kid, and one mixed kid, actually. He was half and half. So she was like, I know how the prison and the pipeline system works. Like, I don't want to bring them after school to then have them get into further trouble, which then leads them to being on the radar. So, like, even her in her cognizant mind, she knows that's real. So, for me, that's definitely real. It's a real thing.
Okay. Nah, yeah, that seems it. I wouldn't doubt it. G.
All right.
What you thinking?
Damn. Everybody said real, so I'm gonna go with fake. So I'm gonna flip it on it. Like,
Okay.
all right, because because I work in higher education, right? This is my theory. The zero tolerance policy isn't to actually push the school to prison pipeline, but it's more to push certain students from excelling in high school to get into these colleges and universities. So, a lot of we're in Boston, so a lot of the we're like the college mecca of the U.S.
Right.
But most of the colleges and universities in the city of Boston, all the black population for the most part, I think with the exception of UMass Boston, are less than 5%. So the black populations of these schools are less than 5%. I think when you implement like zero tolerance policies and stuff, the suspensions, the arrests, and things of that nature, I don't think it's necessarily pushing kids towards prison, right? Because when you even look at it, even our dropout rates have declined, right? For like black boys, I think it's like now it's at 6%. For black girls, it's also at 6%. Like they've declined rapidly in our nation, and so I think the real purpose of these policies is to maintain the status quo of like, all right, certain colleges, right? Because like, let's say for example, if a student is not in trouble, they're excelling, they go to class every day, they're learning the material. What that means is when they apply for these universities, on paper, they should get in. Well, what separates them, right? If you have like harsh rules, you have a bunch of white teachers teaching black kids, Hispanic kids, then there's a cultural difference, right? And teachers bring in their views or their stereotypes and things of that nature. So if a black kid acts up, let's say the black kid acts up the same way a white kid acts up, the white woman who's a teacher could relate to the white kid, but they can't relate to the black kid. When they see the black kid, they see a potential criminal. They see like a class clown. They see all the negatives, but they don't see the positives. And because of that, they're quick to suspend, expel, transfer to another school, and things of that nature. But I don't think their goal is necessarily go to prison. I think their goal is just to make sure that there's the elite class,
right,
and then there's like the black kids that are just good enough for like the public schools that aren't in the top 100. But like when it comes to the competitive schools, the top 50, the top 25, you're not going to really see that many black kids. And so that's where I think it's not necessarily pushing them to the school to prison pipeline. It's more to push them away from the competitive universities.
So you're saying it's to scare them into doing better.
It's not to scare them to do better. I think it's literally these rules like implemented to actually cause those problems, to create a clear distinction. They don't want us to actually compete, and so like think about it. They're not stupid, right? Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure the superintendent, or the superintendents, principals, they know, like, the majority of their teachers don't look like these kids. So they know, like, okay, if they're not providing these teachers with, like, cultural competency training and things of that nature, what I think is happening is they know this, but they're not really caring. And the school system as a whole aren't necessarily putting funding towards having teachers, like, evaluate the way they judge these kids. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's because, when these schools or these kids fail or they underperform, it's easy for colleges and universities to go, oh, well, the reason why we don't have black kids is because, so they're just not performing.
Do you know if those numbers actually reflect what is supposed to come out of the zero tolerance policy? Or does it reflect that it's pushing people to prison?
To me, the school to prison pipeline, from what I've researched, maybe that was like legit in like the 90s, right? And like the early 2000s. But today, because like the dropout rates and everything are declining, I don't know if I can make that same argument. So what I'm saying is these harsh rules that they're implementing for like zero tolerance and everything, I don't think it's to push these kids towards prison. It's just to push them away from college. You see what I'm saying? And so when
I see.
Yeah, so like if you're suspending them this, that, and the third, they're not necessarily competitive. So then
push them away from college is what you said, right?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Because again, it's like, to me, right, even like think about this, right? When teachers in like inner city schools, right, they have to like adjust their curriculums around an exam. That to me is bullshit, right? But like teachers are more concerned with just this particular exam, like you have to pass, opposed to actually teaching these kids to be intellectuals, right? And when you teach these kids to be intellectuals, when they go off to college, they'll excel. But if you're just teaching these kids to just pass a particular test, when they go off to college, they're not equipped to actually excel at a college or university, at a college level. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, Fu, do you have anything to say to that?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering because
My only thing to what G said is when you push kids away from college, you start the cycle where they don't see any type of opportunity beyond what they know already. When you go to college, right, the whole idea is you go to college, you expand your mind, you expand your opportunity context, all that good stuff. Mm-hmm. So while it's not overtly telling kids, yo, we're going to suspend you, that's going to lead you to prison, by them rules being harsh, and not to get me wrong, there needs to be discipline, but by them rules being harsh, pushing them away from those competitive schools, you also take an opportunity away from those kids. And in a lot of these cases, these kids are going back to neighborhoods where there's no type of opportunity to begin with. So what else can they do but something illegal that will eventually lead them to jail? And I'm not saying every kid is going to act the same, but I think that those no tolerance rules lead to that progression. Right? Like you get expelled from a school, your name is marked. They know you across a district, right? Like your name is marked. Right. Then when you have trouble at another school, they kick you out. Then when the time is right, you're probably like, yo, you know what? I'm done with school anyway. I'm not going back. What am I going to do with no degree, no high school diploma, no college degree? I'm going to have to do something that's minimum wage or if
something strange for some change.
Right. Something that might not be on the right side of legal. That's going to end up leading you into jail. Like
because they stain your record,
permanently,
early age,
permanently.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like these poor kids that are like 8-9 years old that get expelled from a school, that stays with you until you graduate high school.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? If you graduate high school,
that only stays with you if your parents ain't equip you. So we got to get back to the root. All right. Why your parents ain't got houses passing down to their children?
Before that's another time. Isn't that another part? Isn't that another? I was gonna say that's another point on the list, right? So I was like, but for this specific point, I think it does.
Yo, hold on. I will say this. I was just playing devil's advocate. I actually agree with I actually think it's real, but because everybody else said real, I was like, yo, fuck it.
Yeah.
Understandable. I'm with it. Nah, it's all good. So that was real or fake. That was real or fake. Good one. Obviously, that's just real. You know what I mean?